Have you ever been used, then thrown away? Have you ever followed orders, done what was asked of you, only to be rejected, mistreated, and left alone to suffer the consequences? This is not a story about queens and crowns. It's the story of a servant, a woman without a voice, a foreigner without power, a mother without protection, but not without purpose. This is the untold story of Hagar, the woman the world cast aside, but the God of the universe saw. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Women in the Bible, and leave a comment, because what you're about to hear may sound ancient, but it echoes in our lives today. It begins long ago, before empires rose and kings built cities. A man named Abraham had been chosen by God, handpicked for a divine promise. Your descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the sky. But there was one glaring problem. Abraham and his wife Sarah were childless. And not just childless, they were old. Decades had passed. The hope of holding a baby in Sarah's arms had long since faded. Still, Abraham held on to faith. But Sarah wrestled. How could a promise from God remain unfulfilled for so long? Here's the first moment to reflect. Have you ever felt like time was running out? Like God promised something, but it's just too late now? Let us know in the comments. We've been there too. In that tension, Sarah made a plan. If I can't bear the child, she thought, maybe someone else can on my behalf. And so she turned to Hagar, a young Egyptian servant who had long been in their household. Let's pause on Hagar. She was likely given to Abraham and Sarah years earlier when they had traveled to Egypt, possibly as part of a royal exchange. Some scholars believe she was of noble birth, reassigned into servitude. Others believe she was born into slavery. What matters is this: she had no choice. She didn't choose servitude. She didn't choose her masters, and she certainly didn't choose what would happen next. One morning, Sarah told Abraham, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Genesis 16:2. There was no record of Hagar's consent, no words from her mouth, just silence and obedience. Abraham agreed, and Hagar became his second wife. Soon she was pregnant, and everything changed. At first it may have seemed like a blessing. A child was finally coming. Hope was stirring. But Hagar began to see herself differently. She was no longer just the help. She carried Abraham's heir. She had something Sarah didn't. Not beauty, not status, but legacy. She held life in her womb, and that changed how she carried herself. Sarah saw it, not in words but in glances, in posture, in presence, and it made her burn with anger. She turned to Abraham and said, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I gave you my slave. Now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me." Genesis 16:5. Abraham, trapped between two women, simply said, "She is your servant. Do with her whatever you think best." Powerless, passive, avoidant. And just like that, Sarah was unleashed. The Bible doesn't tell us exactly how Sarah mistreated Hagar, but the original Hebrew word implies harsh humiliation, intense affliction, and mental cruelty. It was so bad that one night Hagar ran away. Have you ever been trapped in a system, in a relationship, in a job, in a church, where everyone else had power but you? Have you ever had to run just to survive? Into the wilderness she went. No food, no water, no plan, just fear, desperation, and the desert wind. At first she moved fast, heart racing, mind spinning, but soon the desert opened before her like a sea of dust. The night turned cold, the stars above offered no comfort, and when the sun rose it brought no hope, only heat. She collapsed. Was this how it would end? She had obeyed. She had carried life, and now she would die. But Hagar didn't know. Someone was watching. She fell near a spring of water, breath shallow, lips cracked, arms trembling. No one was coming. No one cared. Until a voice spoke. Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from and where are you going? Genesis 16:8. She gasped. He knew her name. She looked up, and before her stood a radiant figure, glowing with glory, an angel of the Lord. No woman in the Bible had ever been directly addressed by an angel before, but here, in the wilderness, this foreigner, this servant, this runaway, was called by name. Tears welled up as she whispered, I am running away from my mistress, Sarah. The angel nodded. Go back to her. Submit to her. Her breath caught. Go back? After all that pain? But the angel wasn't finished. I will increase your descendants so much, they will be too numerous to count. Her eyes widened. You will give birth to a son, and you shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your misery. Genesis 16:11. Ishmael, God hears. In that moment, everything changed. She had been invisible, but now she was seen. She had been used, but now she was promised. Overwhelmed, she spoke the name that would echo through history. You are the God who sees me. Genesis 16:13. She called him El Roy, the God who sees, and with that, she stood. She returned, not with shame, but with a secret. The God of the universe knew her name. Has there ever been a moment in your life when you were broken and somehow you felt seen? Share it in the comments below. Your story might be what gives someone else the courage to rise. To be continued in part 2, the promise, the exile, and the God who hears again. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in Hagar's story, because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones the world tried to erase. Years passed. Hagar returned to Abraham's camp with renewed strength, carrying the child of promise in her womb and the weight of divine encounter in her spirit. Her son, Ishmael, was born into a complicated world, loved by his mother, claimed by Abraham, tolerated by Sarah. Still, Hagar held her head higher now. She had seen God. She had named him. She had not been forgotten. Ishmael grew strong, a boy full of laughter, sharp eyes, and wild curiosity. He ran barefoot through the camp, climbed fig trees, shadowed the shepherds. And when he sat at night beside Hagar, she would whisper the story. You were born with a promise. Your name means God hears, because he heard me and he sees you. But in the tent next door, something was changing. Sarah, long thought barren, grew heavy with child, a miracle, an impossibility. God had opened her womb, and soon her own son, Isaac, was born. The camp exploded in celebration. Tears flowed, laughter echoed. Even Abraham, now well over 100, held the child like a fragile flame. Sarah, once bitter, now beamed with joy. But joy has a shadow, and that shadow was Hagar. One afternoon, Sarah saw something. Ishmael and Isaac were playing, as boys do. Maybe they were teasing. Maybe Ishmael, older and bolder, got too rough. Or maybe Sarah simply couldn't bear to see the other son smile. Her joy twisted into fear, her fear into rage. She stormed into Abraham's tent. Get rid of that slave woman and her son, she snapped. That boy will never share in the inheritance with my son, Isaac. Genesis 21:10. The words sliced like a blade. Hagar wasn't named. Ishmael wasn't a son. Just that woman. Just that boy. Abraham was torn. He loved Isaac, the miracle child, but Ishmael was his son too. He sat in silence, heart trembling. Then God spoke. Do not be distressed about the boy and your servant. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. But I will also make the son of the slave woman into a nation, because he is your offspring. Genesis 21, 12-13. Let's pause here and ask, have you ever been the one people referred to without saying your name? Have you ever felt erased from the room? Dismissed, downgraded, disposable? If you have, then you understand the weight of what happened next. At dawn, Abraham did the unthinkable. He gave Hagar a skin of water, a piece of bread, and sent her away. No farewell, no protection, no plan. She held Ishmael's hand and walked into the wilderness once more. The desert greeted her like a cruel memory. The sun climbed higher. The water ran out. Ishmael slowed, stumbled, then collapsed. Hagar caught him in her arms. His chest rose and fell in short, dry gasps. She looked around. No help in sight, no miracle in motion. She dragged him beneath a small bush, the only shade she could find. And then, she stepped away. "I can't watch him die," she whispered. She fell to the ground. Tears spilled from her eyes. Not soft weeping, but ugly, aching, soul-shattering sobs. This was the end. She had survived once. But this time, there was no angel, no spring, no name, just silence. Or so she thought. From the heavens, a voice rang out. "Hagar, do not be afraid." She gasped. "God has heard the boy crying where he lies. Lift him up. Take him by the hand. I will make him into a great nation." Genesis 21, 17-18. Her eyes shot open. There, in the middle of the desert, was a well. It had been there all along, but now she saw it. She crawled toward it, filled the skin with fresh, cool water, ran back, lifted Ishmael's head, pressed the water to his lips. He drank. Color returned to his cheeks. His breathing slowed, and Hagar sobbed again. But this time, with joy. God had saved them. Again. They did not return to Abraham's camp. Instead, they journeyed farther, into the wilderness of Paran. Ishmael grew into a skilled archer, strong, free, wild like the wind. And just as God had said, he became the father of a great nation. His descendants would rise, and they would shape the course of history. But Hagar's story, it wasn't just about survival. It was about a God who sees, a God who does not abandon the forgotten, a God who hears when no one else listens, a God who provides when there's nothing left. Let's reflect for a moment. Hagar, a servant, a foreigner, a woman cast aside, is one of the few people in the entire Bible to receive a direct encounter with God. Twice. She named him. She spoke to him. He answered her, not through prophets or priests, but personally. And through her son, a great nation was born. Now I want to ask you, how many times have you felt cast out, unseen, or barely surviving? In your career, your family, your church, or your own skin, how many times have you heard people write you off as that woman or that story? But Hagar's legacy tells us this: you are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are not alone. God sees you. God hears you. God still has a future for you, even in the wilderness. Now tell us, what part of Hagar's story spoke to you the most? Was it the exile, the silence, the miracle in the desert? Let us know in the comments. Your voice matters here. If this story inspired you, please like this video, subscribe to Women in the Bible, and leave a comment below. We read everyone. Until next time, remember, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved.